some interesting goings on in the political scandal and politicians going to jail world. And we start with Tom DeLay, and then we draw a parallel to that between that and Governor Don Siegelman, which, by the way, free-don.org is the website to learn all about Don Siegelman if you're not familiar with his situation. And, of course, bradblog.com. Brad Friedman, the founder, editor, and publisher of the Brad blog, is with us. Hey, Brad, welcome back.
Hey, Tom, how are you? You mean there's other news going on other than the hostage-taking crisis in D.C.?
Well, we covered that for the first hour, so I wanted to talk about, it's like enough already, right?
Yeah, right.
So, and I find this story fascinating. Tom DeLay was pretty much nakedly taking money from corporations and fat cats in Texas and using that money to pass along to other Republicans in the House. This is in order to get them to vote for him for Speaker of the House. John Boehner does the same thing. I think he raised, $24 million last year, some amazing amount of money. And he's the largest funder of other Republicans in the House of Representatives from within the House of Representatives. And that's basically what the Speaker does. But it turns out that that's illegal the way that he did it in Texas. Do I have that right?
Yeah, well, I mean, what is different is that it is specifically illegal for corporations in Texas to give money to political candidates for office. They can give them to political action committees for, administrative funds and so forth. But what Tom DeLay did back in 2002 was he accepted his PAC down there, accepted hundreds of thousands of dollars from corporate interests, which are not supposed to go to candidates. So what he did was he took that money and he gave it to an RNC, a National Political Action Committee, with the instructions that the RNC committee should give that money to 7 specific candidates for office back in Texas. That, the prosecutors argued successfully, is money laundering. And Tom DeLay was found guilty in 2010 of 2 different counts of money laundering and was sentenced to about 8 years in jail. But then, of course, he was immediately released on bail and has never served a night in jail before 2 Republican judges about a week and a half ago reversed those charges, acquitted Tom DeLay, said that the corporations giving the money did so legally, therefore you can't consider it money laundering. It was sort of this tortured logic that the 2 Republicans on this 3-judge panel voted for. The Democrat dissented, but for now, at least, it has allowed Tom DeLay to get off scot-free without spending a night in jail.
Which brings us now. Tom DeLay, of course, was one of, if not the most powerful Republican in the United States, and in fact, he had the nickname the Hammer. Which brings us to Don Siegelman, who is a Democrat and was the governor of Alabama.
Yeah.
Or Arkansas. No, which one?
Yeah.
Arkansas.
Alabama.
Alabama, yeah. Okay, thank you. And Don Siegelman, tell us the story.
Yeah, well, so you can contrast Tom DeLay's case because his case, by the way, was very successful. The Texan who were running for the legislatures were elected. They were then able to for the first time since Reconstruction, by the way, the Republicans ended up taking a majority of the Texas State House. They were able to gerrymander Texas, and the result was 5 additional Republicans in the U.S. House. So it was a scheme that was very successful for Tom DeLay, who became the Republican majority leader. Contrast that with Don Siegelman, who received nothing of personal gain in what he was charged with, charges related to what they call bribery, but 113 bipartisan former state's attorney general have sent a note saying, to the Supreme Court saying this was not a crime. What Siegelman was charged with was never a crime before in the history of this country. There was no quid pro quo. He received no personal benefit from this money that was given by a sort of a campaign contributor. A contributor gave money to a lottery campaign that Siegelman was in favor of that would send poor kids to school for free.
Right, which a lot of states do. I used to live in Georgia, and they have a scholarship fund that's funded with the lottery.
Exactly, and that's what Siegelman was pushing for. He was in favor of it. This businessman contributed a lot of money to that fund, and what they claim that this guy got in return was that he was allowed to be on a state hospital board. But the fact of the matter is, it was a voluntary hospital board. In other words, he was not paid for this position, and he had been appointed to that very same position by 3 previous governors, previous Republican governors.
Right.
So there was really nothing, apparently, that Siegelman got in exchange.
So Don Siegelman committed no crime, and yet he is in prison as you and I are speaking right now. Yep. Tom DeLay committed an obvious crime, and yet he has never served a day in jail.
6.5 years is what Don Siegelman is currently serving, and he has charged a massive conspiracy that Tom DeLay was involved in to steal his 2002 election, and then later on to prosecute him and put him in jail, along with guys like Karl Rove and Jack Abramoff and so forth. And there is a great deal of evidence to show that is exactly what happened, including that stolen election, by the way, which he went to bed in 2002 having been reelected, announced by all the networks as having been the winner of that election, only to find out the next day that, what do you know, a Diebold tabulator in one little county in Alabama suddenly discovered 5,000 votes that they hadn't seen previously. It changed the results of the election for governor, didn't change any other votes across the state, but it did change the governor's election, and he was tossed out. He was a very popular Democratic governor, and that was something that you just can't have in a southern state.
And the guy he ran against, Bob Riley,
yep.
Who is now the governor of Alabama, or was until recently. I think he still is, isn't he?
Actually, I think he still is.
Yeah, the guy he ran against, Bob Riley, his campaign manager,
right?
Who, Mr. Canary, what was his first name?
Laura Canary and Bill Canary. Yeah,
Bill Canary. His campaign manager, Bill Canary, was Karl Rove's best friend from college days, and his wife, the campaign manager for Bob Riley, for Don Siegelman's Republican opponent, the campaign manager's wife was the federal prosecutor in Alabama, appointed by, I believe, George W. Bush,
yes,
who prosecuted Don Siegelman.
That's correct. I mean, an unbelievable conflict of interest. And by the way, as the case proceeded, the judges that oversaw the case were also clients of Karl Rove. So you have, the prosecutor married to the campaign chief of Don Siegelman's rival. I mean, it's an extraordinary case of injustice as far as I can see. And yet Siegelman's still in jail. Tom DeLay is walking free. Ted Stevens, you'll remember, similarly was let off the hook as soon as the Obama administration came to office because of prosecutorial misconduct. But in this case, there seems to be no action whatsoever other than the Department of Justice trying to get a stronger sentence against Don Siegelman. It is just outrageous, Tom.
Outrageous is not a strong enough word. It's anti-American. It's the kind of thing you would expect to see in a banana republic. It's the kind of thing that you would expect to see. I mean, this is the kind of criminal justice system that North Korea has. This makes no sense. It
really is, and this is something that we got a statement at bradblog.com from the governor from jail following Tom DeLay's getting off the hook, and I'll tell you, he's fighting mad about it. You can read that at bradblog.com, and I hope people will speak out for a pardon for this man because it is outrageous.
Amen. Contact the president, contact the White House, pardon Don Siegelman. Bradblog.com. Brad Friedman. Thanks, Brad.